Trigger warning. If you have misophonia, some things in this video may be a problem. If you have misophonia, you may want to turn the sound off on this video and watch with closed captionings instead. This video is the second part of a series, so be sure to check out the other videos too. What's up, guys? theheartyaerie here. So, some coping mechanisms that you can put into place for yourself with your misophonia is carry earbuds around like the ones I have in right now, and just put in what music you can do, or a class recording or something of that nature, and just put that in your ears and keep going on with your day. However, I know that that's not exactly always an option to just clip in your headphones and be like, alright, because if you're sitting in the middle of a lecture, that's not gonna work. So some other things that you can do to help yourself is to remove yourself from the situation. So if you're sitting next to or in front of somebody who is smacking their gum or tapping their pen or wto your trigger sound is, then you can get up and move to a different part of the room to kind of muffle the sound, if not completely remove it. If you have a professor who drinks or eats like a pig during lecture time, then maybe you should sit towards the back of the room. Some other things you can do is make sure that the people around you are aware of your misophonia triggers. So if you're in school, tell your teachers or your professors that, hey, can you please not do this because blah. If you have coworkers that you work within a tight space, make them aware. Make your friends and family aware of the fact that you have misophonia. And what they do that bothers you. You also know what helps you when you get angry, so that you can calm yourself down, because removing yourself from the situation or making the trigger not be a trigger is not always possible. So what can you do to calm yourself down when you do get triggered? That's something that is different for each and every person, because every person reacts in a different way. So that's something that you need to look up on your own and figure out about yourself, is what can I do to not allow myself to be so angry? You have to come up with these coping mechanisms, because there's no way to completely remove every trigger all the time, because life happens. Some of those sounds are necessary and they have to happen. People have to be able to eat, and they have to be able to drink, and they have to be able to talk. And when you talk, you have to open your mouth, and there's no way to get rid of all of our triggers, but there are ways to lessen our interactions with certain triggers, and there are ways to cope with them once we do get triggered. So that's something that you really need to keep in mind when you're coming up with a solution for yourself, or that's even something to think about when you're starting to get triggered, is think about why that sound is necessary. Tapping your pen is never necessary, but there are sounds that trigger people that are necessary, such as it's a necessary sound. Walking is a necessary sound. Eating is a necessary sound. So that kind of helps some people, is to be aware of the necessity. However, that also bothers some people, because if you find out that the sound is not necessary at all, then you might escalate that. So that's something that you need to be aware of on your own, and just there aren't a whole lot of things that you can do that will stop yourself, but there are things that can help. Earbuds are the best solution for most people. However, there are situations that it doesn't work in, and that's okay. Come up with your backup plans, the first thing you can do is, if somebody is making a sound, say, hey, can you please stop? And I know that's really hard for somebody who's angry about the sound, but try to say that before your rage escalates, when it's just starting to annoy you. Hey, can you please not do that? Hey, can you please stop making that sound? Can you please chew with your mouth closed? So those are things you can do. Something else that has become helpful is if you are eating and chewing food bothers you and somebody else needs to eat, something that you can do is eat at the same time. That one kind of takes away from their sound, and it helps with the mimicking, and so that's something. However, I know that that's not always an option for some people, especially if you have an eating disorder also, but this is just one option. Is if you're eating, it doesn't always bother you if somebody else makes the same sound. Some people, it still bothers them, but there's a lot of people that doesn't bother, and so that's something you can do, is mimic that. Another thing that has been found to be helpful is eating out in a restaurant setting so that you don't hear it, or eating it in any other setting. If you're eating, play music that doesn't bother you, calming music that doesn't bother you in your home, things like that, to minimize the sound of the other people. And another thing that will help is for you to be aware of the fact that you make a lot of those same sounds. When you chew, you do. Even when you chew with your mouth completely closed, you are still making chewing sounds. That's something that you need to be aware of, that fact, because it will bother people who don't have misophonia, that you're allowed to make those sounds and it doesn't bother you. So be aware of that fact that you do make these other sounds. And make sure that other people know that your sounds don't bother you, because I know that there are some people with misophonia that their own sounds do bother them, but for the majority, your own sound won't bother you. So be aware of that fact, that you do make these sounds. It just doesn't affect you in the same way that it does when other people make the sounds. And that's really all you can do. If you have any other coping mechanisms that you've come up with to help prevent triggers or allow you to cope with triggers, let me know in the comment section below. The heartyaerie. What?